The winter wind howled down the alleyways of Chicago's South Side, rattling trash cans and sending scraps of paper skittering like lost memories. A homeless man huddled in the shadows, wrapped in a patchwork of worn blankets. His face was lined with age and hardship, his clothes layered and tattered, but his back remained straight, his posture stubbornly proud. Officer Kyle Briggs, fresh from his promotion to sergeant, leaned against his patrol car, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. The radio in his cruiser crackled softly, background noise to the city's pulse. It was supposed to be a quiet night, until he saw him. Briggs narrowed his eyes. "Hey, you can't stay there," he barked, stepping out and letting the cruiser's door slam behind him. His voice echoed off brick walls. The man stirred, his hands trembling, as he gathered his few belongings into a frayed duffel bag. "I wasn't bothering anyone, officer," he said softly. But there was something in his tone, a quiet dignity that didn't match his appearance. Briggs smirked, his breath fogging in the cold. "You're bothering me. Move along. This ain't a shelter." The man nodded, shuffling to his feet, but Briggs wasn't done. He stepped closer, the weight of his badge puffing him up. "Got ID?" The man hesitated, then pulled out an old, cracked wallet. Inside was a faded military ID, so worn the edges curled. Briggs snatched it, squinting at the name. "Harold Freeman," he read, lips curling into a sneer. "Vietnam vet? That's supposed to mean something." A few passers-by slowed, their footsteps hesitant. Someone pulled out a phone, angling it to record. "Look at you now," Briggs continued, his voice louder. "All that hero talk, and here you are, sleeping in trash. Bet you weren't much of a soldier to begin with." The man's hands clenched into fists, but he said nothing. His silence made Briggs bolder. "What? Nothing to say? Thought you'd have a fancy speech for me. Guess all that discipline doesn't mean squat when you're out here begging." The tension was palpable. The few bystanders murmured, uncomfortable. But no one intervened. Just as Briggs turned to walk away, a voice cut through the cold like a knife. "Excuse me, officer." A woman in a tailored black coat stepped forward from the crowd. Her heels clicked on the concrete, her posture commanding. Commander Lila Monroe, head of Chicago's Office of Veteran Affairs. Her badge glinted under the street lamp. Briggs turned, his smirk faltering. "Ma'am, this doesn't concern you." "Oh, but it does," Monroe said, her voice cool and sharp. "That man you're harassing isn't just a vet. He's Colonel Harold Freeman, Silver Star recipient, two-time Purple Heart awardee, and a man who saved over 50 lives in Vietnam. His name's in the Military Hall of Honor, downtown." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Briggs's face flushed, his jaw tightening. I didn't know," he stammered. "You didn't care to know," Monroe snapped. "You saw an old man in ragged clothes and made your judgment. But you forgot something important, officer. The badge on your chest doesn't make you better than anyone. It makes you accountable to everyone." Freeman straightened, the weight of humiliation lifting from his shoulders. His gaze met Monroe's, gratitude and quiet strength in his eyes. Briggs's lips parted, but no words came. Monroe's gaze locked onto his, her voice dropping low enough that only he could hear. "This isn't over. You'll be hearing from my office. Expect a formal complaint and possibly a suspension." The onlookers whispered, some pulling out phones recording the moment. Briggs stepped back, his authority crumbling under the weight of his arrogance. Freeman turned to Monroe, his voice hoarse but steady. "Thank you. I didn't want trouble. Just needed a place to rest." "You'll have more than that," Monroe said, her voice softening. "Come with me. We'll get you into the housing program immediately. You've waited long enough." As Freeman walked away with her, the crowd parted, some clapping quietly, others bowing their heads in shame. Briggs was left standing there, the weight of his badge heavier than ever. But just as Freeman and Monroe reached her car, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, tires screeching on wet asphalt. Two men in dark suits stepped out, their faces partially obscured by shadows. One of them called out, "Colonel Freeman, you need to come with us. Now."
"Who are you?" The man flashed a badge, Department of Homeland Security. "This isn't about a shelter, it's about what he knows." Freeman's face paled. He exchanged a glance with Monroe. "I didn't think they'd find me here," he whispered.
Briggs, watching from across the street, frowned. "What's this about?" he called out, stepping forward, his earlier arrogance forgotten. The DHS agent's voice was low, but firm. "It's classified, but if you value your badge, you'll walk away." Monroe tightened her grip on Freeman's arm. "He's under my jurisdiction." "Not anymore," the agent said. "Colonel Freeman holds information that's resurfaced, information that could blow this city's corruption wide open. Someone wants him silenced before he talks."
The crowd froze, the tension snapping taut. Freeman's face tightened, his shoulders squaring. "I thought I could hide, but it seems the past doesn't stay buried." Monroe's eyes flashed with resolve. "Then we'll fight. Together."
The air grew thick with tension as Colonel Harold Freeman stood between Commander Lila Monroe and the two DHS agents. The city's neon lights flickered behind them, casting eerie shadows on the cracked pavement. "I'm not going anywhere," Freeman said, his voice a quiet rumble. "Not until I understand why." The taller agent stepped forward, his tone clipped. "Colonel Freeman, you're a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. You have information we need, information that certain people don't want coming to light." Monroe squared her shoulders. "If this is about corruption, then he's staying under my protection until I can get him safely to federal authorities. You have no right to take him without a warrant." The agent's smirk was thin and dangerous. "Do you think a piece of paper will stop what's coming?" Freeman's eyes darted around, scanning the faces of the gathering crowd, the silent onlookers recording on their phones. His jaw tightened. "I've stayed quiet for years," he murmured, mostly to himself. "But maybe it's time to speak." "Speak and you'll be dead by morning," the second agent hissed, stepping closer. Before Monroe could respond, the unmistakable wail of police sirens echoed down the street. A squad car screeched to a halt nearby. The new arrival, Lieutenant Marcus Green, an old friend of Monroe's, stepped out, flanked by uniformed officers. "Is there a problem here?" Green's voice was calm but commanding, cutting through the tension like a blade. Monroe's relief was palpable. "Lieutenant, these men are trying to take Colonel Freeman into custody without proper authority. I need safe transport for him to the federal office downtown." Green's eyes flicked to the DHS agents. "Let me see your paperwork." The lead agent hesitated for just a second too long. Green's hand hovered near his belt. "No warrant?" "Then you're not taking anyone tonight." The taller agent's composure cracked. "You're making a mistake." "No," Monroe said, her voice sharp. "The mistake was underestimating us." Freeman, feeling the power shift, straightened his back. "I'm done hiding," he said quietly. "I have names, dates, and records that'll blow the lid off a corruption ring that reaches from City Hall to federal offices, but I need a safe place to talk." Green nodded. "You'll have it." The tension broke like a snapped wire. The crowd murmured in approval as Freeman, Monroe, and Green moved toward the waiting police vehicles. But just as Freeman was about to step inside, a black, unmarked van screeched around the corner, its headlights blazing. The doors flew open, and masked men in tactical gear poured out, weapons drawn.
"Get down!" Green shouted, pulling his sidearm. Monroe ducked, dragging Freeman behind a parked car. The crowd scattered in panic, phones dropping, people screaming.
Gunfire cracked the night. Bullets ricocheted off metal and shattered glass. The masked men closed in, firing warning shots into the air. One of the DHS agents shouted, "This wasn't supposed to happen. Stand down."
But the masked men ignored him. Their weapons were trained on Freeman.
Freeman's breath came in ragged gasps. "They're not here for me to talk," he realized aloud. "They're here to make sure I never do." Green returned fire, his officers taking cover. Monroe's voice rang out, "Stay down, Harold. We'll get you out of here." But before she could move, two masked men flanked them, closing the gap with military precision. One raised a weapon to Freeman's head. "End of the line, old man," he snarled.
Freeman's jaw clenched, but his eyes gleamed with something Monroe hadn't seen before, a quiet, burning resolve.
"You don't know what I've survived," he whispered.
Before the masked man could pull the trigger, a piercing whistle echoed through the chaos. A signal.
The masked men froze, their heads snapping toward the sound. From the alley, across the street, a tall figure in a black trench coat stepped into view, his face obscured by shadows. "Stand down," the figure commanded, his voice cold and authoritative. The gunman hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. The masked men exchanged uneasy glances. Monroe's heart pounded. "Who is that?" she whispered. Freeman's breath caught in his throat. That's the man I thought was dead," he murmured, his voice thick with shock. The figure stepped closer, revealing a faint, jagged scar running down his face, his expression grim. "You weren't the only one hiding, Harold," he said. "But if we don't move now, none of us is getting out of here alive."
The real story has just begun. Who is the man in the trench coat? What secret has Harold Freeman been carrying all these years? And how far will those in power go to silence the truth? Find out in part 2, coming soon.